In response to the events of September 11th, communities across the country arose in unity to offer their share of assistance. In Evanston, Illinois, just days after the attacks, several Baha'i youth joined their neighbors for a candlelight vigil. Afterward, the youth met for their weekly devotional gathering and held a discussion focused on what they could do to help each other and their peers cope.
Sometimes when something major like that happens, and it's far away, we think that because we're not there, we're not directly involved, that we can't help, that we can't do anything, right? Well, we can.
Well, my main thing that I've been doing so far is I've been trying to spread the message to make sure that people aren't going to go around, with racial profiling or anything like that. And that's just my little mini mission for right now.
Mohammed Gandhi says that be the change that you want to see in the world. And so for me, just living up to the standards of what God would want, every day being an example of love and unity to everyone that crosses my path. I mean, if everyone were to do that, if everyone wants to see peace, find peace within yourself.
On Friday, September 14th, the Mother Temple of the West, even in a state of restoration, once again became a beacon of light on the National Day of Prayer and Remembrance. The house of worship was filled to capacity with people of diverse backgrounds. Later that week, the house of worship stood as a symbol of peace and justice and hosted the United Nations International Day of Peace. These events make the job ahead of us more compelling. They give new meaning to the goals of the Kingdom Project. More than ever, we can see the clarity of our role in building the kingdom. It is indeed our time. Our national community has much to celebrate with the unprecedented pledging of $24.5 million for the Kingdom Project in just under 2 years. Amidst the crises of today, this accomplishment is a major victory. But there are still more victories to be won as we continue to work towards the $60 million goal. Among the initial goals of every community, according to the Universal House of Justice, should be the establishment of children's classes that are open to all inhabitants of the locality. Spiritual education is not a new concept in the Baha'i community. For over 150 years, individuals have been independently investigating the Baha'i faith. This is a religion of learners. The landscape of Baha'i education in the United States reveals a pattern of development much broader and more systematic than imagined. There are permanent schools and institutes at the national level. There are regional training institutes in all 4 corners of the country. There are seasonal schools all over the nation. In many communities, there are now study circles. And of course, in nearly every community, children's classes have been established.
We make this a response and a house and a place.
The Baha'i School in Springfield, Massachusetts, is like many across the country. It has met on Sunday mornings for almost 20 years. The school's spiritual roots, however, go back to the cradle of the faith and the 1983 martyrdom of 10 Baha'i women in Iran. Minu Moghadam left Iran that year with her husband and children to flee from the persecution of Baha'is there. After leaving Iran, it took the family a year to get a visa into the United States.
I was hoping that if I get to this country, to United States, I'm gonna be in a place that I can raise my children freely in a Baha'i faith.
While still in Iran, Minu became close friends with Mona Mahmoudnejad, the 16-year-old girl from Shiraz who was imprisoned and later martyred along with 9 other Baha'i women in the summer of 1983. Mona was later remembered in song as Mona with the Children.
You know, Mona was a Baha'i teacher in Iran, and she loved children, and she gave me wonderful advice that I never forget, and told me that, Minu, if you left and then you went to that country, remember that you have to raise your children under the umbrella of Baha'u'llah's principle. And when I came to this country, right away in the morning, I called to the Baha'is in this area. I asked that I want my kids to be participate in a Baha'i school. They said there is no Baha'i school. And I got very sad.
Minu started the Springfield Baha'i School in her living room with only 3 children. Today, the community rents several classrooms in a local university to accommodate the over 200 children and adults who attend. The Baha'i community has a long tradition of educating its youngest members. Scattered across the country, classes have been held and excellent curriculums developed. But these valiant efforts were difficult to duplicate in different towns and environments without trained facilitators and teachers. In 1989, the National Education Task Force was appointed and asked to evaluate the existing curriculums and programs. The result? Core curriculum was developed, combining all the existing materials into one broad and consistent education of all children. Then the National Education Task Force realized that for children to receive the best spiritual education, the culture of the Baha'i communities had to change. So courses in marriage, parenting, race unity, and gender equality were developed. At the National Teacher Training Institute located at Luhelen, Karen Olin Pash and Martha Patrick are training the newest group of Baha'i children's class teachers.
I am a trainer of teachers through the core curriculum, and I came to Luhelen originally to train so that I could go back into my own community to train teachers. Now I've come to work with another teacher trainer to train trainers. In other words, we are training those who will go back into their community and work with teachers.
The newest development at the Teacher Training Center is that some core curriculum classes can now be taken for college credit. This is a big step towards fulfilling Shoghi Effendi's original vision for the Luhelen Baha'i School.
The Guardian indicated that Luhelen would one day be a university. He called it that ideal Baha'i university of the future. We're now able to offer graduate credit for several of the core curriculum training programs, and that is really a significant step forward on the road to being a full freestanding university.
The core curriculum is designed as a process of educating any willing soul who would like to work with children and youth. We begin by looking at the nature of the teacher, the spiritual nature of the child, the content, and the specific teaching ways that Abdu'l-Baha has shown us.
An ideal core curriculum classroom, I think, would be one in which children are very actively engaged in learning. So not one in which the teacher is the main focus, disseminating information.
The core curriculum is able to systematically develop in the teacher and in the student the aspects of spiritual growth that will allow them to mature and become active, teaching, happy individuals who delight in being Baha'is.
Core curriculum teacher training is the beginning of a lifelong process. It's not just a workshop, a weekend. Wherever the teacher is, perhaps they've had years and years of experience, and this will only brighten and embolden them and re-spark their enthusiasm.
Dan Darling is the outreach coordinator for core curriculum training.
Yes, I'm on the front lines. I'm a first point of contact, so that if an institution or a training institute or a local assembly sees a need in their community for parent training, they can call my office and I can help point them to parent facilitators in their area, or if they don't yet have parent facilitators, I can consult with them on ways that we can get someone trained.
Core curriculum is continuously evolving to meet the needs of children's class teachers. This year, they're publishing the first in a series of storybooks on the central figures of the faith. Available now is a book of short stories on the life of Baha'u'llah.
The teachers have told us how much it would help them if we identified those stories and worked with authors and illustrators to provide them ready to go.
But teacher training is not about books alone.
One of the exciting points of the Baha'i approach in teaching is that you're not, as a teacher, you're not a lecturer. We can consult, we create. The classes are based on using all the senses.
It's doing it in a very spiritual way that really will add, I think, to anything that I can do in the future, particularly in my service to the Baha'i community. The weekend that we've spent here at Llewellyn has been very, very inspiring.
For over a decade, the Memphis area Baha'i Academy has served children and adults in Memphis, Shelby County, Tennessee, and northern Mississippi. With a large number of preschoolers and an even larger number of youth, flexibility is a key ingredient in the school's success. The community has found that core curriculum is one way they can meet the needs of each and every child, while also providing a good grounding in the basics of the Baha'i faith. But the Academy hasn't always been that way.
I've been going to Bahai Academy since I was about 2 or 3. When I was little, we basically just colored and things the whole class time. And now I notice that little kids are actually talking about what they think about the writings.
I teach 6, 7, and 8 years old in the Sunday school.
Sadek Hakiman has taught at the Academy for 3 years. This past summer, he was trained in core curriculum at the Jubilee Training Institute in Nashville.
They allow us to look at educating the children in a new way. They allow us to see these children as noble beings.
After training, the Academy also began to focus more on developing a sequence for their classes. Now, each year, the entire school focuses on one of the central figures of the Baha'i faith. The lessons are broken into 3 levels so that each age group learns an aspect of Baha'i history that is appropriate for them. Every 3 years, the cycle begins again, and the children move up to the next level of study.
That gives us some organization and also provides a source of dinner time conversation, so that if all the classes were studying Baha'u'llah, they might not have been in exactly the same lesson that week, but at least there's some commonality among the different age levels.
The Academy keeps a transcript for each child, marking off the topics he or she has already learned.
The idea of the transcript is that there are kids who come and go as Baha'is tend to move, and we would notice sometimes if you have a family move in and you talk to the children, well, they'd already studied Baha'u'llah, whatever, but the parents and the kids couldn't necessarily verbalize what they knew or what they had already gone over. So this is a way of just having it written down. The teacher will actually initial the different topics that a child has covered.
The Memphis Baha'is have high hopes for the future fruits of Academy graduates.
Sunday school is one more way of teaching the cause, and it's to beautiful children. And If we teach them the Baha'i faith, it's going to be generation after generation they're going to be able to partake of the services.
The experience of the Kingdom Conference is proof of the power of including children and families in all of our activities. The spiritual education of children is the promise of the Baha'i faith, and that promise is facilitated by the use of the core curriculum and other curriculums designed to teach all children the spiritual verities.
I want to be a bug scientist, a meteorologist, a ringmaster, and a syllable scientist.
I want to be an inventor, a scientist, and a veterinarian.
I want to be a basketball player, and I also want to be a doctor. If I can't be that, I want to cure people who have scleroderma.
I want to be a scientist, a doctor, and a lifeguard.
One of the innovative individual initiatives for children emerged after the 1992 riots in Los Angeles. Many children were left traumatized by seeing their own neighborhood destroyed. As an act of service, some Baha'is decided to help children living near the LA Baha'i Center to become healers of society instead of victims.
They came up with an after-school program that would focus on virtues.
The Children's Enrichment Program, also known as CEP or CEP, educates children 5 days a week after school and all summer long.
It is sponsored, of course, by the Spiritual Assembly. It is the first social and economic development project of the Baha'is of Los Angeles.
There was a needs assessment that went out to parents in the community, asking them what they wanted to do. They valued the idea of homework tutoring, so we used that as one of the components for a program which had much bigger and broader goals. The goal really of creating a new generation of humanity.
Out of 34 students, 33 are non-Baha'i, one is Baha'i. Out of 3 teachers, one of being myself, I'm Baha'i, one is Muslim and one is Christian.
The Children's Enrichment Program provides homework tutoring and integrates virtues training with service, while also cultivating habits of the heart. Teresa Langness developed the curriculum, which has since been adopted by some of the Los Angeles Unified School District teachers. This curriculum addresses the needs of the whole child, instead of just one aspect of each child. The Full Circle Learning curriculum uses character education, arts, conflict resolution, academic enrichment, and service to foster creative development of children who care about humanity. The program relies on the assistance of volunteer tutors and mentors. When the terrible events of September 11th shattered our nation's sense of security, the Children's Enrichment Program helped students work through their feelings and learn peacekeeping skills and aspects of conflict resolution.
It requires the most difficult step, which is to have empathy for the other side.
They practice these skills with an activity they call the conflict bridge.
We use the conflict bridge both for role-playing personal conflicts between the students and role-playing conflicts that we see in current events.
Outside the CEP classrooms, parents take an active role in reinforcing the habits of the heart, service and conflict resolution, as well as encouraging the academic progress of their children. Consequently, many of the students have seen better report cards with improved grades and positive comments from their school teachers about their behavior.
She's been coming to the Baha'i Center for 3 years. This program is, I think, is one of the best programs there is.
I've seen a big difference in my son since he's been a participant in this program. Being a Baha'i, he's gone to Baha'i school and he's had a lot of instruction in the area of virtues, but that's once a week. This is something that's happening on a daily basis that's really reinforcing what he's learned as a Baha'i child. I think it's been an excellent opportunity for him.
The children learn that knowledge that ends in words is of no use. From raising money for a family in Uganda to volunteering at a local nursing home, the children are learning to be of service to humanity. Many of the students have made new friends at the neighboring nursing home through SEP's Adopt a Grandparent program.
The good thing about this is that it's continuous and it shows them how to be empathetic. It shows them, how to have consideration. It shows them generosity. It shows them the value of life.
They're beginning to see themselves as part of the solution. Meaningful contributors, helpers and healers of society. Not just as children going to a place where they can be cared for, but as children finding their own unique niche for service to humanity.
They help us to read and learn more about caring for each other, even it doesn't matter how you look.
Helps us be positive and get good grades. We can really do something that'll benefit the world and us.
For more information on Baha'i education or ideas for children's activities, visit the new Baha'i Education public website, www.education.usbnc.org.